Let's talk about consistency, because that's where love really shows up. Not in the grand gestures once in a blue moon, not in the occasional good morning text after 3 days of silence, not in the romantic memes he sends when he's bored at work. Consistency is the quiet, steady heartbeat of someone who's genuinely emotionally invested in you. And a man who's in love, he shows up in your messages. Every day, in small but meaningful ways. You never have to sit by your phone analyzing what he meant by that cryptic message. You don't find yourself reading old texts, wondering when things changed or why his energy has dropped off. You don't get that sinking feeling in your stomach when he suddenly pulls back after a really intimate conversation. Because he doesn't play that game. He's not about the chase, he's about this connection. When a man is truly in love, he doesn't leave gaps that make you question your worth. He doesn't create distance just to regain control or reset the emotional playing field. His communication isn't a power move, it's a reflection of what he values. And if he values you, then his effort will reflect that. Not once, not twice, but over and over again. Here's the thing, real love doesn't need to be unpredictable to feel exciting. The right kind of love, the healthy kind, feels safe. It feels warm. It feels like, oh, there you are. Not, where have you been? You're not in a constant state of decoding or negotiating just to get a simple reply. Because a man who's in love doesn't need reminding to text you back. He wants to connect. He wants to hear your voice, even if it's just through words on a screen. He wants to share his day, hear about yours, and keep that thread between you both alive and open. A man who's in love isn't hot and cold. He doesn't text like he's tossing breadcrumbs and hoping you'll follow. You're not just one option in a rotation. You're the person he's choosing. And his texts reflect that. Whether it's a short, thinking of you, in the middle of a busy day, or a late night conversation about your hopes, your worries, your weirdest thoughts, he's there. That digital space between you starts to feel like a place where you can both be yourselves fully and unapologetically. Let's be honest too, life gets busy. We all get distracted, overwhelmed, caught up in our own mess sometimes. But even then, a man in love doesn't disappear. He doesn't use stress or workload as an excuse to emotionally clock out. He might not always be available to have long, deep talks, but he'll send that quick message. Crazy day, but I'm thinking of you. He'll make sure you feel seen, even when time is tight. That's the difference. He's not perfect. None of us are. But he's present. And presence isn't about quantity of text. It's about quality, clarity, consistency. You know he cares not because he said it once when he was drunk or feeling lonely, but because he proves it in tiny ways every single day. The way he checks in without being asked. The way he remembers that you had that big meeting or that your mom wasn't feeling well. The way he follows up. These little moments add up to something that feels solid, grounded, and real. And listen, if you're constantly asking yourself, why hasn't he texted back? Or should I double text? Or is he losing interest? That's already your answer. When a man is in love, the emotional labor doesn't fall entirely on your shoulders. You're not left keeping the momentum going. He's right there with you, matching your energy, meeting you halfway, making the effort not just when things are good, but especially when things get challenging. Because consistency isn't just about keeping a streak alive. It's about building trust. Every message becomes a brick in the foundation. Not every message has to be poetic or profound, but they add up. And when he texts like someone who's invested, who cares, who's proud to know you and wants to be part of your life, it changes the way you carry yourself. You stop wondering, you stop doubting, you start relaxing into the connection. So if you're in something right now that feels like a roller coaster, highs that are addictive, lows that make you question everything, ask yourself if you're mistaking intensity for intimacy. Ask yourself if you've normalized inconsistency because you've been taught to think love has to be unpredictable to be real. Doesn't. In fact, the most extraordinary kind of love often comes wrapped in the most ordinary messages. Good morning every day, a check-in, a voice note after work, the way he never lets too much time pass before reaching out. That's not boring. That's safe. That's someone who respects your heart. And that right there is how a man in love texts. Let's talk about emotional safety. Because when we talk about texting and how a man communicates when he's truly in love, it's not just about what he says, it's about how his zizi makes you feel. And the number one feeling that separates love from lust, interest from investment, is this: you feel safe. Safe emotionally, safe to be yourself, safe to open up, safe to trust the connection you're building. When a man is in love, his texts don't trigger anxiety. They don't send you spiraling into doubt or leave you rereading everything he said, trying to figure out what he's really meant. You're not constantly battling a quiet tension inside you, wondering if you're coming on too strong, if you need to pull back, or if he's drifting away again. Because he doesn't text in a way that creates emotional whiplash. He's not pulling you in just to push you away the next day. His words have a sense of grounding. He's not toying with your emotions. He's creating space for them. It's so easy to fall into the trap of thinking that stress and uncertainty are part of the chase. That if your heart's racing and you're nervous all the time, that must mean it's real. But love isn't built in that chaos. That's adrenaline. That's insecurity. And you know what that usually means? Your doings or the emotional work. You're holding the relationship together with overthinking, hoping his next message will reassure you. But a man who's in love doesn't let you live in that emotional limbo. His messages might be simple, but they come with clarity. You know where you stand, not because you had to decode it, but because he tells you. He doesn't disappear after an intimate moment and then act like nothing happened. He doesn't switch up the vibe just to keep you guessing. He doesn't go quiet for 2 days after things started feeling real. Instead, he builds on the connection. He adds to it. He keeps the conversation going in a way that makes you feel heard and seen. You never have to go back to your friends and say, "It was amazing yesterday, but now he's acting different." What do you think it means? Because when a man's in love, the day after, closeness feels closer, not confusing. This is a man who wants you to feel secure with him. That doesn't mean he's perfect or always says the exact right thing. But the way he texts reflects care. It reflects presence. It reflects emotional responsibility. He's aware that you're a human being on the other end of the message, not just a distraction, not just someone to fill the silence when he's bored, not someone to validate him when he needs a little ego boost. He sees you as someone he wants to build with, not someone to keep on standby. And here's the real beauty of it: you stop managing the relationship from a place of fear. You stop strategizing your replies or waiting the right amount of time to respond so you don't seem too eager. You stop tracking his patterns like an investigator. Because you're no longer trying to earn emotional safety. It's just there, his tone, his timing, his follow-through. They all work together to give you one message loud and clear. You don't need to worry. I'm here. That kind of emotional safety allows you to show up as you. And that's where the magic happens. Because when we feel safe, we open up, we laugh more, we share more, we soften. And instead of building a relationship based on games and rules, you build one based on truth and trust. That's the difference a loving man makes. He removes the stress so love can actually breathe. You know what else changes when you feel safe in the way someone communicates? You start to enjoy it. You actually look forward to hearing from him, not because it means you'll finally get clarity, but because you already have it. You get to enjoy the messages for what they are, not for the reassurance they provide, but for the connection they deepen. That's the shift. It stops being a source of anxiety and becomes a source of joy. And it's not about him saying the perfect thing every time. It's about how he handles the moments that matter. When something's off, he notices. When you're upset, he checks in. When you say something vulnerable, he doesn't change the subject or ghost you. He stays in the moment with you. And even if he doesn't always know what to say, he says something. Because silence isn't his way of coping. Connection is. A man in love doesn't let you feel like you're alone in the relationship. He builds safety through consistency, empathy, and presence. He makes you feel like your feelings have a home with him, not something you have to hide or apologize for. And that kind of safety, that's the foundation for everything. Affection shouldn't feel like a guessing game. When a man is truly in love, affection comes naturally, freely, effortlessly. He doesn't filter every message through a lens of ego or pride. He's not carefully calculating how much emotion to show based on who texted first or how long it's been since the last message. He doesn't view tenderness as a weakness or vulnerability as something to be rationed. He's not trying to win the conversation. He's simply being real with you. And let's be honest, we live in a world where people are constantly being told to play it cool, where showing too much emotion is somehow a red flag, or expressing genuine affection gets labeled as doing too much. But love doesn't thrive in emotional stinginess. It doesn't grow in silence or prideful withholding. Love grows in expression, in letting someone know without hesitation that you value them, care for them, and miss them when they're not around. A man who is in love texts in a way that reflects that truth. He says the sweet things, not because he's trying to get something out of you, but because it's how he feels. If he misses you, he tells you. If he's thinking about you, he lets you know. He's not afraid to be romantic, not scared of being seen as too sentimental. He's emotionally available. And that availability shows up in the way he speaks to you, even when it's just through a screen. He might send a voice note just to say how much he loves your laugh. Or a random message during the day that says, "You popped into my head and made me smile." And the most important part, he doesn't make you feel weird for receiving it. There's no teasing you for being soft, no sarcasm that undercuts sincerity, no emotional whiplash after an affectionate moment. You feel like you can let your guard down because he's already taken his down. And this is important. He's not waiting for you to make the first move every time. He's not just mirroring your energy because he's unsure of his own. He's initiating affection. Not in grand, performative ways, but in honest, consistent ones. You don't have to fish for compliments or beg for emotional crumbs. You don't have to drop hints and hope he picks up on them. He's already paying attention. He already wants to say those things because it makes him feel closer to you. There's a different energy that comes from a man who's not afraid to be warm. His texts aren't transactional. He's not being sweet just to earn points or get validation. He's not love bombing you early on and then ghosting when the real emotional investment kicks in. He's just being himself. And if he loves you, that affection flows from him naturally. It's not forced. It's not performative. It's not timed for maximum impact. It's just part of the way he connects. And maybe he's not overly poetic. Maybe his way of showing affection is simple, made it home, thinking of you, or you'd love this song I just heard. But those little messages speak volumes. They tell you that you're not just on his mind, you're in his heart. They tell you that he values emotional closeness, not just physical proximity. That he wants you to feel appreciated, not occasionally, but consistently. And if something's off, if you seem distant or quieter than usual, he doesn't ignore it. He doesn't brush it off or wait for you to bring it up. He reaches out. He checks in. Because part of affection is as care. And care isn't just what you say when everything's going great. It's how you show up when something feels off. A man who's in love doesn't back away in those moments. He leans in. Even when he doesn't have the perfect words, his affection makes you feel held, not fixed, not judged, held. You feel emotionally nourished in his presence. You never feel like you're being too much, asking for too much, or loving too loudly. In fact, when a man is in love, he makes you feel like you couldn't possibly be more welcome in his world. You feel like his texts are a soft place to land, not a battlefield where you're constantly trying to earn a little attention or affection. And there's one more piece to this. A man who's in love doesn't just express affection when it's easy. He does it even when it's inconvenient. Maybe he's tired, had a rough day, or is overwhelmed, but he still finds a moment to say, "I'm thinking of you," or "Can't wait to talk later." That's the kind of love that isn't about ego, it's about effort. Not just when it's comfortable, but especially when it's not. Because love doesn't stay quiet when it has something to say. And when a man is truly in love, his words reflect that clearly, warmly, and without fear. You can feel when someone's really there with you, even through a screen. When a man is in love, he doesn't just reply, he shows up. And it's not about sending long essays every day or knowing exactly what to say in every situation. It's about presence, emotional presence. That sense that even though there's physical distance, you're not emotionally disconnected, that you matter. that he's not just going through the motions. He's engaged. He's with you. It's in the way he remembers the little things you say in passing. You mention you've got a meeting you're nervous about, and a few hours later, he texts, "How'd it go?" You tell him you haven't been sleeping well, and he checks in the next morning to ask if you finally got some rest. You didn't have to repeat it. You didn't have to ask for support. He's paying attention. Because presence isn't just about how often someone reaches out. It's about how much of themselves they bring when they do. There's a difference between someone who's just keeping the conversation alive and someone who's actually invested in you. A man who's in love doesn't text like he's checking something off a list. His messages don't feel like placeholders. You're not getting the same one-liners he sends to 5 other people. You're not stuck in surface-level small talk. His words feel very intentional. And even when the conversation is light, when you're joking, teasing, laughing, there's depth behind it. You feel his energy, his focus, his attention. It's easy to underestimate how powerful that kind of presence can be. We're so used to distracted communication, half-hearted replies, emojis instead of engagement, or the infamous "sorry, been crazy busy," after 2 days of silence. But when a man is truly in love, he doesn't use business as an excuse to disconnect. He may have a lot going on, but he doesn't make you feel like an afterthought. Even in a quick message, he gives you his presence. That "I'm here and I care" kind of energy. You feel it when he asks thoughtful questions. Not just the "how was your day" kind of check-in, but the kind that shows he actually wants to know your world. What's been on your mind lately? What's something you're not excited about? What's something you're not saying out loud right now? That's not someone texting out of habit. That's someone creating space for you to be seen. That's presence. And it builds something far more meaningful than a streak of consecutive days texting. It builds trust. It builds emotional safety. It builds a rhythm of connection that doesn't rely on performance or perfection. And here's something that might seem small, but it means a lot. When you're talking, he's not distracted. He's not vanishing mid-conversation for hours without explanation. He's not giving you responses that feel like he read half your message and didn't bother with the rest. When he's with you, even digitally, he's with you. He replies with intention. He asks questions. He notices tone. He can sense when something's off. You don't have to shout to be heard because he's already tuned in. And that emotional attentiveness, that's what separates someone who likes you from someone who loves you. Because love listens. Love remembers. Love shows up, not just when it's easy, but especially when it matters. He's not using texting as a tool to maintain just enough connection so you don't drift away. He's using it as a bridge to grow closer, to go deeper, to stay emotionally aligned with you even when you're apart. You also notice how he responds to your emotions. If you're excited, he celebrates with you. If you're upset, he doesn't make you feel like a burden. He doesn't brush your feelings aside or try to fix them immediately. He just stays. And even if he's not sure what to say, his presence says enough. You don't feel like you have to hide parts of yourself to keep the vibe light or to avoid being too much. His texts give you room to be real, because that's the point. Presence allows for authenticity. You're not performing for each other. You're not tiptoeing around what you really want to say. You're not worried that too much honesty will push him away. You're honest because he stays present. That's how love deepens. Through those unfiltered moments where someone proves they're not just in this for attention or entertainment, they're in it for you. And yes, sometimes his messages are fun and light and totally silly. That's beautiful too. That's part of intimacy. But it's the quality of that lightness that feels different, because behind every inside joke or playful line is the same foundation. I'm here. I see you. I value this. When a man is in love, you don't just read his messages. You feel him in them. There's a quiet shift that happens when a man is truly in love. You start to notice it in the way he talks about the future. It's subtle at first. Maybe he says something like, "We should try that place sometime," or "Next time we go there, you've got to order what I had." Those little moments don't always seem big in isolation, but they are. Because when a man is in love, the language of the future changes. It stops sounding like "see him" and stops sounding like is. The word slips in not as a strategy, not to impress you, but because in his mind he's already placing you there. It's one of the most beautiful signs that someone is emotionally invested, not just because they're thinking about what comes next, but because they're already imagining that next with you in it. And he might not even realize he's doing it. That's how genuine it is. He's not announcing it with a big romantic speech. He's simply including you in his plans the same way you include someone when they've become part of your world. It's natural. It's effortless. It's love showing up in the form of foresight. And it goes deeper than just words. It's in the way he asks about your goals, your dreams, your timeline for things. He's not just curious. He's factoring you into his own life. Where do you want to live one day? Do you want to travel more next year? If you ever launched your own business, what would it be? He's not asking just to make conversation. He's asking because your answers matter to him. Because as he starts to map out his life, he wants to make sure it aligns with yours. That's not just romance. That's emotional partnership. That's someone who's thinking long term, not just in theory, but in practice. You also feel it in the way he makes small decisions now. He's not operating like someone with a separate life that you occasionally visit. He considers your schedule when making plans. He thinks about your preferences, your comfort, your happiness. He'll say, let me know if that weekend works for us, or we can figure out something that suits both of us. Again, small words, but the meaning, huge. He's not making decisions for himself and inviting you along for the ride. He's building a shared rhythm, a shared life. And I want to say something important here. This isn't about rushing into commitment. This isn't about pushing for timelines or forcing the relationship to hit milestones faster than it naturally would. It's about seeing the organic signs that someone wants to commit, that someone isn't afraid to think ahead with you in mind. A man in love doesn't get nervous about making plans 3 months from now. He's not worried that talking about the future is some kind of emotional trap. He's not calculating what it says about him if he uses we instead of I. He's just being real. He's including you because that's what love wants to do. It wants to expand, to grow, to build something that lasts. And you start to feel that sense of partnership develop, not just in big moments, but in the everyday ones. You talk about what your weekends look like, not because you're trying to sync up calendars, but because you genuinely want to spend that time together. You talk about concerts coming up, vacations, even mundane things like, we should start watching that show. You go from making memories to making Z momentum. That's what a man in love does. He turns present moments into future plans. He plants little seeds of what's next because he wants those things to include you. And maybe you've been in something before where that wasn't the case, where the other person avoided any talk of the future, shut it down, or kept everything vague. That's not love being careful. That's love being withheld. Because when someone's all in with you, their words naturally start to reflect that sense of permanence. It's not just what they say, it's what they stop avoiding. Future talk doesn't scare a man who's in love. It doesn't make him feel trapped. It makes him feel excited. And more than that, it makes him feel connected. Because now he's not just building a life, he's building it with you in mind. You'll notice the way he includes you when he talks to other people too. He'll tell his friends, we're thinking of going there. He'll mention something you said in a conversation. You're not some separate entity in his world. You're part of his story, and not just the current chapter, the one still being written. When a man is truly in love, you stop feeling like a temporary guest in his life and start feeling like a co-architect of what comes next. You know the kind of texts that make your shoulders drop a little. The ones that remind you you're not alone in this world, that someone's actually in your corner. That's what a man in love brings. Even through a screen, even in a quick message, he finds a way to lift you. He doesn't just check in. He builds you up. That's what makes the difference. His words don't just fill silence. They give you strength. They remind you who you are. A man who's in love doesn't wait for a reason to encourage you. He sees your potential and speaks to it. He notices when you've been quiet, when you're doubting yourself, when life is wearing you down, and he doesn't ignore it. He leans in. Not with lectures or overcomplicated advice, but with words that remind you, you've got this. He'll say things like, I know today's heavy, but I believe in you. Or, I hope you remember how strong you are, even when it doesn't feel like it. It's not dramatic, it's not performative. It's consistent, heartfelt support that shows up in the moments you need it most. You feel it in how he responds to your wins too. A man in love celebrates you. He doesn't get quiet when you shine. He doesn't downplay your success. He's proud of you, not just for what you do, but for who you are. And that pride comes through in his words. He hypes you up, not because he's trying to flatter you, but because he genuinely sees what makes you extraordinary. His messages reflect admiration. He says things like, you're amazing at what you do, or watching you go after your goals is one of my favorite things. He notices and he tells you. And when life gets messy, when you feel unsure or overwhelmed, he becomes that emotional anchor. Not to fix everything, not to carry your weight for you, but to stand beside you while you figure it out. His texts aren't pressure, they're peace. When you feel like everything's slipping, he becomes that quiet voice reminding you that you're not falling alone. He sends the kind of message that doesn't need to be long to hit deep. You're doing better than you think. Or, I've got your back. And that's sometimes all it takes. Just knowing someone sees you, supports you, and isn't going anywhere. You also notice how present he is in your growth. He remembers the things you've told him you want to work on, the goals that scare you, the parts of yourself you're trying to step into. And instead of just watching from the sidelines, he walks with you. He'll check in with your progress. He'll celebrate the baby steps, not just the big wins. Because to him, your journey matters. Your evolution isn't a burden. It's something he's honored to witness. His messages become little reminders that you're not crazy for wanting more out of life. And you're not alone in chasing it. And let's not forget, he doesn't just lift you when things are hard. He lifts you daily, even in the ordinary. Even when nothing big is going on. That's what love does. It doesn't wait for crisis to show up. It shows up in the hey, just reminding you how much I adore the way your brain works. Kind of text. Or, still can't believe I get to be with someone like you. These things might seem simple, but over time, they build something powerful. You start to believe it. You start to carry yourself differently. Because love, when it's healthy, doesn't just feel good. It makes you feel good about you. You start to notice that his words don't drain you. They fuel you. You don't get off your phone feeling smaller, second-guessing yourself, wondering if you said too much. You walk away from those conversations feeling full. And not because he's trying to manipulate you with sweet talk, but because he's seeing you clearly and speaking to the strongest parts of you, even when you forget they exist. He reflects back the version of you that's brave, capable, worthy. The version that you sometimes have trouble finding in the mirror. And it's not about perfection. He's not always poetic. He doesn't always get the words exactly right. But the intention behind them is always felt. You never doubt that he's rooting for you. You never question if he sees your worth. You never feel like you have to shrink yourself to be loved. And maybe for the first time, you realize that love shouldn't require that at all. Because a man in love doesn't just want to be part of your life. He wants to add to it. He doesn't just say, I'm here for you. He proves it in those quiet, thoughtful moments where you feel a little bit stronger after hearing from him. And when someone consistently gives you that kind of energy, that kind of love, you don't just feel lucky, you feel safe, empowered, and seen. That's the kind of message you never have to overanalyze because you feel the truth of it in your heart before you even finish reading